All right, let's talk about something I'm sure a lot of you have gone through. You spray that bitter, no-chew stuff all over a new chair leg, feeling pretty smart about it, only to walk in and find your dog just happily licking it all off. What is going on there? It's one of those huge mysteries of being a pet owner, and today we're going to dig into the science and actually solve it. Let's get right into it. Yeah, this review it hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? My dog licks the carpet soaked with bitter spray. You can just feel the frustration. And it's an experience so many of us have had. You buy something that's supposed to be one of the worst tasting things on the planet, and your dog acts like you just gave them a snack. It makes absolutely no sense, right? So it all comes down to this one simple question. Why? Seriously, why would a dog lick something that is designed to be one of the most disgusting, bitter things imaginable? Well, the answer, it's a lot more interesting than you'd think. And look, this goes way beyond just saving your favorite pair of shoes. This is a real safety issue. We're talking about things like antifreeze, which is incredibly toxic to dogs. These bittering agents are put in there specifically to stop them from getting poisoned. And the lethal dose can be tiny, just a few milliliters. So figuring this out is, well, it's absolutely critical. So the solution on paper seems totally logical. You take this chemical, denatonium benzoate, which, by the way, is one of the most bitter things a human can taste, and you just add it to everything you don't want your dog to eat. The whole idea is built on this one big assumption. If it's awful for us, it's gotta be awful for them too. Makes sense, right? Or does it? But this is where the idea completely falls apart in the real world. Just look at the customer reviews for a typical bitter spray. It's pretty shocking. A massive 64% of people gave it a 1-star review. That's not just a little hiccup. That is a total failure. It tells you loud and clear that for most dogs, this so-called solution isn't a solution at all. Okay, so to figure out why it's failing so badly, we have to go way deeper than just thinking about behavior or training. The real reason is literally written into a dog's DNA. The clue is hiding in their biology, in how they actually perceive the world. So let's get just a little bit technical for a second. There's this key term we need to know, TRS2s. It's just the fancy scientific name for bitter taste receptors. You can think of them as these tiny little sensors on the tongue. Their whole job is to detect a bitter chemical and then shoot a signal up to the brain that basically screams, "Yuck, spit that out." And right away, this is where we see a huge difference between us and them. We humans have about 10,000 taste buds. A dog, they only have around 1,700. That's like 1/6 of what we have. But here's the thing, it's not even just about the number. It's about how well they work. And the research is really clear. When it comes to that specific chemical, denatonium benzoate, a dog's receptors are just way, way less sensitive than ours. The science here is actually pretty cool. The easiest way to think about it is like a lock and a key. The bitter chemical is the key, and that taste receptor, that TAS2R, is the lock. Now for us humans, that denatonium benzoate key is a perfect fit for our lock. It slides right in, turns, and sends that super strong bitter signal. But what scientists found is that the dog's lock is shaped differently. The key can kind of go in, but it doesn't fit right. It's a clumsy fit, so the signal it sends is really weak, or maybe no signal at all. So that's the theory based on genetics, right? But you can't just stop there. Scientists had to prove it. So let's head into the lab because the test they came up with was so simple, but what it showed them was a total game changer. It's called a 2-bottle choice test, and it's exactly what it sounds like. They offer dogs 2 different bowls of water. One is just plain old water. The other has that bitter chemical, denatonium benzoate, mixed in. And then you just watch. You measure how much they drink from each one. It's a really straightforward way to ask the dog a direct question. Do you hate the taste of this or not? And boom, this is the big reveal. When they used a low concentration, one that you or I would find disgusting, the dogs didn't care at all. They drank from both bowls pretty much equally. No big deal. But then the researchers cranked up the concentration. They made it 10 times stronger, and suddenly the dogs wanted nothing to do with it. They clearly avoided the bitter water. And that right there is the answer. It's not that dogs can't taste it. They can. It's just that their yuck threshold is so much higher than ours. Okay, but hold on, because the story isn't just about taste. That's a huge piece of the puzzle, for sure. But to really get the full picture, we have to talk about a dog's superpower, their nose. Their sense of smell is what really runs the show. So you have to ask yourself, when a dog decides to chew on something, is it only about the taste? Or is there something else going on, something even more powerful that's pulling them in? You know, for a dog, everything starts with smell. Studies have shown that a powerful smell is the main thing that gets them interested in something. I mean, in one experiment, dogs actually chose to eat boring, bland food just because it smelled like meat. That tells us everything we need to know. Smell is the invitation. It gets them to check something out. Taste is what makes them decide if they're going to stay. So, if your shoe smells really interesting, and let's be honest, to a dog it does, a little bit of a bitter taste just isn't going to be enough to put them off. All right, so let's put it all together. We've looked at the genetics with the lock and key, we've seen the proof from the lab tests, and we've talked about the incredible power of their sense of smell. So what does this all mean for us, in our everyday lives with our dogs? How do we use this? Well, here are the big takeaways. First, and this is the most important one, dogs are not just small, furry humans. Their whole sensory experience of the world is completely different. Second, that super bitter chemical, denatinium benzoate, it's just not a reliable deterrent for most dogs, at least not at the levels you find in the sprays you buy. And that leads to the final point. If we want to make something that actually works, it has to be tested on dogs, based on their biology, not what tastes bad to us. Diving into all this really just shows how different our dog's world is from our own. It's kind of amazing. And it really gets you thinking, if we've been getting something as simple as bitter wrong for this long, what else are we missing? What other parts of their world do we just completely not understand?